Hi there, I'm Carolyn Fox, and thanks for being interested in my life, I guess. I started in radio back in 1975. I was really precocious when I was a little kid, and I had this big booming voice, I guess. And I was fortunate enough to be able to walk into a radio station because at that time, women were still considered to be a minority. I walked into a radio station, the first one on the dial, and I showed up in my Dorothy Hamill haircut and my wraparound skirt and my wedge sandals, which, by the way, are still in fashion, or in fashion again. I was so young that my mom had to take me to my first job interview. And as embarrassing as this all sounds and was, I got a job on the radio. I had never done radio before. I had done a lot of theater, but I had never been behind a microphone for any length of time. What inspired me, frankly, was Rosh Hashanah services at Temple Bethel in Providence. I don't know what happened. I was probably dreadfully bored, and I saw the rabbi on the bimah, and he was talking into a microphone, giving his sermon, and an epiphany came over me. It was like God was with me, and I came up with this great idea. I want to do that. I want to talk into a microphone. I want to be on stage, but I don't necessarily want to talk about religion. I want to talk about funny stuff, observations, things that happen in life every day that go unnoticed. So again, I feel really fortunate that the first station I ever walked into actually hired me. So that was a lot of fun. Did on-the-street interviews, did a little bit of news, clueless about what I was doing. The program director, who actually kind of had a fondness for me, said, "Carolyn, you got a lot of talent for a 15-year-old, but it might behoove you to expand your horizons because we don't see you as a news girl, okay? Maybe you want to learn a little bit about music." So what I did was I became a broadcaster for a college radio station in Providence, WBRU. Having the experience at a professional radio station allowed me to easily get a job at a college. But even though it was a professional radio station, it was a college radio station. And I worked there for a couple of summers as a teenager. And then when I had to apply for college, I was like, I'd be an idiot if I didn't apply to Brown because I'd already been working there. I was already entrenched in the whole Brown community, etc. And when I was on the radio at Brown, I was trying to sound like Miss NPR. I don't know how to put that in words, but it's more like monotone, and this record was Bruce Springsteen. Anyway, I didn't have I couldn't do that for very long. What happened is my personality started seeping through. And my personality is what it is. I just love having fun. I like to get under people's skin. I like to make people think about how absurd life is. There are a lot of people, though, that go through daily struggles and have a lot of hardship in their lives. And I like to just lighten up the load. I'm a pretty good interviewer. I like to ask the questions that other people won't ask. I have no fear, and if I do, I take fear and put it in the chair next to me. But my forte, I think, is getting people to talk about their feelings, what scares them, what makes them joyful. And I also like to take stories that are happening, let's say in the news, twist them, even these complicated stories, like stories about government, budget, really tedious, boring subjects, twist them an eighth of a turn, make them funny, easily digestible, and approach them from an angle that maybe, let's say, CNN or CBS wouldn't do, if you will. So what I've been doing, so I worked at the Brown radio station for 3 years. I noticed that I was gaining some popularity, and I love Providence, but I also really wanted to move on with my life and stroll on up 95 and get a job in the big leagues. And the big leagues back then was Boston. Again, taking fear and putting fear on my side, I just innocently started calling radio stations in Boston. And there was a radio station in Boston at the time, and granted, I'm young, I'm like 20 years old. And I said, oh, hi, Mr. Andy Bobian, at the biggest radio station in Boston, Led Zeppelin Shrine. You know, I work at WBRU, I'm a college student, I'm doing really well in college, but I think I could help you at your radio station. Don't you need part-time people? Well, forget part-time. He hired me to do full-time, overnights, so I was on the air every night, Monday through Friday, during the week, from midnight till about 6 in the morning. Then I would hustle my butt down to Providence to go back and take classes at school, get a little sleep, study for exams, do all this voluminous amounts of reading that they had you do in college, which is another topic for another time. It's just crazy and absurd. And go up back to Boston every day at around 9 o'clock at night to the radio show. Well, needless to say, I got fired. And that was the first and last time I ever got fired in my life, and that was back in 1980. So I'm here today to just continue the fun I've had on television, radio before. I'm a pretty successful business person, but this is where I believe I belong, and I hope you think so too. Ciao!